Welcome to another episode of Preparing for the Unexpected. I'm your host, Alex Fullick, and as always, we like to talk about things related to resilience, business continuity, emergency management, crisis communications, disaster planning, anything that's relatable to those topics, and anything that helps you, your organization, or your community prepare for, respond to, and overcome adverse situations. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, please feel free, reach out on LinkedIn. I'm the only Alex Fullick there, so I'm really easy to find, and I do respond to everything I get. A couple of other quick announcements. First, thank you to everybody who attended the Disaster Recovery Journal Conference. I was the master of ceremonies, and outside of my knees knocking quite hard, I had a great time and a lot of fantastic speakers. Second, November 3rd to 4th, I am presenting at the BCI World Conference, virtual conference, again this year. And I will also be facilitating a panel and participating in 2 network discussions with one of my guests today. And December 1st to 2nd, the Continuity and Resilience Today conference, which is now going to be virtual. I know for the longest time I had my fingers crossed that it would be in person, but unfortunately it's going to be virtual this year. But I'm still going to be presenting there and may actually be doing some other things for the conference. So I hope to see everybody there. Today, we are going to be talking about the Resilience Think Tank, and I have 2 very special guests today. One is Mark Hoffman, and the other is Andreas Bryant. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Alex, thanks for having us. It's great.
And likewise, Alex, thank you very much for inviting me on.
Yeah, as you can tell, Andreas is joining us from all the way from just north of London.
My accent gave it away then, did it?
Only a little. Just in case anybody doesn't know who Andreas or Mark is, could you both take a moment to take a quick bio on yourself, what you do, how you got into what you do? We'll start with the way people appear on my screen. So Andreas, you're first.
Fine. Okay. Yes, I'm Andreas Bryant. I currently work as a business continuity and resilience specialist for a global asset manager. I've got around 8.5 years direct business continuity, crisis management, and disaster recovery experience, with an additional 12.5 years experience across financial services, managing consulting, property management, and also a bit of retail. That's how I started out. I'm also a certified member of the BCI, which actually leads me to a point that I would like to make to anybody that's breaking into this industry. Although this point is not, 100% universal for everyone, combined with perhaps a bit of luck, good judgment, and a gamble, I got my chance within the business continuity and resilience industry back in 2013. And that was actually following a redundancy. I was looking for a job, and in fact, I didn't quite know what job to look for. I didn't quite meet all of the prerequisites for the roles that I was interested in. And I must have registered with around 50 recruitment agencies when one actually put me forward for a business continuity analyst role. Now, technically, I was underqualified, but during the interviews, I appeared to show enthusiasm to learn about the culture of the organization, and also used my experiences of dealing with multiple different personalities to present myself as flexible and adaptable. Anyway, to cut a long story short, the hiring manager offered me the job, and instead of me saying thanks right away, I asked why they chose me, given technically I didn't qualify. Now, the response I received was, Andreas, you showed enthusiasm and soft skills, such as the ability and willingness to present yourself before multiple personalities, including places of differing cultures. This, Andreas, is a good foundation, and all you need now is to learn the technical disciplines, and your career will start in this industry. That has stuck with me ever since. And for those wondering, did I eventually say thank you? Yes, I did, and I accepted that offer. So that was a long introduction, but I thought I'd share that with some of your viewers and listeners.
Well, great story. Mark.
Off to a good start there, Mark. Try to click the mute button. I was just going to say, I wish I had prepared quite a good story like that, Andreas. I didn't know that about you, and it's an interesting start. So, yeah, I'm Mark Hoffman. I am a senior business continuity, risk, resilience, crisis management consultant. I'm based just north of Toronto, and I've been doing this about 20 plus years or so, following a career in IT where I started off, I thought I was going to be a coder, and I found out I really wasn't very good at that. And got into some project management and other things, which within the IT sector led me to do a number of sort of disaster recovery type of projects. And I just really took to it. I really liked it and thought that that was something that I wanted to pursue more. So from there, I started to focus my consulting more on continuity and recoverability and resilience and things like that. And I've been very fortunate. I currently have clients all over the world, Europe, the Caribbean, the United States, Canada. And I've had the opportunity to work with some really interesting and good organizations doing that. I was fortunate enough to win the Business Continuity Americas Award this year in the consulting category. I'm excited about that. I'm a finalist for the Global Award as well, coming up here shortly. So, like I said, a lot of good fortune, and I'm very, very pleased to be in this industry. I love it. I felt like I clicked in it as soon as I got into it. Like this was what I was meant to do. So I think I'm very fortunate in that regard.
Well, it's great having you both here. And Mark, I can echo the part about clicking with it. I felt like a duck to water the first time something landed on my desk, and I don't know what it was. I don't even think I could put it into words. I just found I love this. I don't know what
That's
it
exactly
is. I
right.
love it. You know.
Yeah, and particularly coming out of, like I said, I thought I wanted to be a programmer, you know, and I did it, and I struggled, and it was always, man, this isn't going as well as I thought. And I don't mean my career; I just mean the development of code, and I just never took to it. I was never very good at it. And then when I started to get into this, yeah, it was an instant click, and I was like, yeah, this is it. This is what I was meant to do.
Well, let's jump into today's topic. It has to do with the Resilience Think Tank, and you are two of the founding members. So my question to you is, how did a think tank come about? What sparked the idea for a think tank?
It was sort of an, yeah, I'll go first with that, Alex. It was sort of an organic kind of a thing. Back in April, when I won the award from the BCI, I felt that it was really important to give back to the BCI and to our industry and to our colleagues. I think that the people who have a fortunate standing like I do in this case to be able to win an award like this have a responsibility that comes with that to give back and to try to promote our colleagues a little bit. And just before the award ceremony, I'd been hearing a lot sort of mid-COVID around our colleagues who were just struggling, and they had major concerns either with their employers or from a contract standpoint, because they didn't feel like they were valued. Everyone that I was, not everyone, but a lot of people that I was talking to felt really undervalued in their organization. And in some cases, maybe during COVID, the business continuity team or the business continuity person wasn't consulted. They weren't brought in. They didn't contribute to things like working from home or returning to the office or things like that. And so they felt shunned or ostracized. And so coming out of the award, I said, look, I want to form a peer group, and I want to talk about how we as business continuity professionals can articulate the value that we bring to the table. And so I had done a peer group the previous year, and I'd worked with some folks around building a positive return to the office strategy. And so I had some experience with forming peer groups and things like that. But this year, what I did differently was I did it by invitation. And so I reached out to Andreas, I reached out to Malena Maneva, who I'd worked with previously, and Lisa Jones and Ashley Guzman and James Green. And I said, this is what I want to do. Will you help me? And for the other 5 people that I reached out to, 5 out of 5, all it took was one email. And it was an instant, yes, we're in. What can we do? Tell us what you need. And so we met and we put together ways that we can articulate value as resilience professionals to our clients and to our employers. And, as we came down to, like, I don't know, the end of the third meeting or something like that, I think it was James who said, Mark, we can't let this go. This is too good of a group. And I've had other members of the group say to me, I've learned so much just from listening to the other members of the group.
Mhm.
And so we said, we need to make this into something permanent. We need to make this into a think tank. And that's how the Resilience Think Tank was born. And I have to tell you, the response to our group has been overwhelming. And we've generated a lot of interest. But that's how it came about.
Andreas, what attracted you to helping create this group and be a part of it? What did you see in it?
Yeah, sure. So I had experienced over the course of my career situations where if somebody says, what do you do for a living? I found it quite difficult to explain to people what it is I do. I was commonly met with comments such as, so basically you just sit around on your hands until a disaster hits, right? And that's perhaps a conception of what I do. So yeah, I mean, it's not just limited to that, but I thought to myself, well, how can I better explain to people what it is I do, and more so within an organization, especially where I'm trying to exert influence within an organization? How do I present what I do in terms of the value that it adds to their business? And I've succeeded in part within organizations, because I have developed successful business. I say successful, they have been tested, of course, during, live events and also within testing scenarios. But I've built business continuity programs within these organizations, and I've managed to kind of break down the silos across different departments to get people actually thinking about that. And I thought I would like to share those experiences with, other people. I'm not saying that the way I approach things is, I'm using this word again, I mentioned it earlier, universal across all organizations. But certainly if you're sharing these experiences with other peers, someone's going to figure out a way of how they can take that on and perhaps do that within their own organization to elevate the program and elevate themselves also within their careers. So I was completely blown away with the level of experience and talent across the 5 other people as part of the Resilience Think Tank. And again, I thought it would just be a great idea if we can put something together to allow other people to have a forum of discussion about topics that are of interest to us within this industry.
It's interesting you said silos, and Mark, you talked about when COVID kind of started and BCM was kind of left out, and you also said it, Andreas. Has that changed now? For the long time we have been struggling with get buy-in, and you saw it in trade magazines, you saw it as topics being presented at conferences. Has that changed now from your perspective that, yeah, we've got the buy-in, now we need to show the value of it? Or is showing the value just a different way of saying getting buy-in?
I think that, no, I don't think it's changed everywhere. I think there are places that still don't understand the value of an effective business continuity program. I think there are still bosses that don't understand the value of the people that they have. And it's our intent, I think, to demonstrate value in order to improve that buy-in, demonstrate value in order to provide some calmness to the people when they think about, or confidence to our colleagues when they think about their standing in their company. No one wants to work in an organization where they just feel like they're ignored and they're only there just to tick off a checkbox.
Mm.
And we want people to be able to demonstrate value to their employers, but also to be able to feel that value within themselves and to have some excitement about what they're doing. And I think after the break, we're going to get into some of our goals and objectives of the think tank and what we want to do. So I'll set that up as a tease for something that's really important. But we just want to help people, to be able to have that value and to demonstrate that value, and to be able to speak to their colleagues and the people that they work with when they say, well, what do you do, like Andreas talked about, and to be able to answer that question effectively.
It's interesting you mentioned, people want to have value in their work. They want to be valued. And that's kind of contributing to some of the things that we're seeing right now with the difficulty in finding people to fit roles, because I'll just use our industry, in business continuity, disaster recovery, whatever it may be, COVID started off as a people disaster. So those groups were told, well, we don't need you, and
That's right.
as things progressed, obviously, things changed, but now we just told people that they weren't valuable. So either they left, they're leaving jobs now, because I actually just saw an article this morning about that, and that's contributing. So it's part of what, and we'll just give a little tease here. Part of what the think tank is trying to do is to show that, hey, even when there's nothing going on, we are valuable to our organization, and these people themselves are valuable.
Agree.
Yep. Yeah. If you don't mind me adding to that, because you mentioned COVID, I noticed that not necessarily in my firm, but across other peers that I've spoken to within their firms, is that it appeared to be very much, an HR issue at first. When we were having discussions about whether staff can attend the offices. But when it came to a point where, depending on, I suppose, the infancy or maturity of your, technology program that you have within a firm, and what I mean by that is, do you have the capability and the ability for people to log in remotely? If you are not quite at a stage where everyone can do that, then, firms were going around asking, different departments, okay, well, we need to start building this because we're going to be in lockdown soon. We need to send people home. How do I know who's critical? How do I prioritize the development of technology for those individuals? And what I found is I heard somebody say that, and it was like, well, the business impact analysis, right? The BIA that we do, we've already, we went through an exercise a couple of months before, and we'd had a list of all the priority individuals. So that's a good starting point. So we didn't own the process. What I find is business continuity practitioners perhaps didn't own that process during COVID, but we were certainly able to support it, and perhaps we were seen in a slightly different light to how we were previously.
And I think that, Mark, do we have anything to add to that? Otherwise, we're going to take a break.
No, now's a good time for a break, Alex.
Yeah.
And that kind of sets up what we're going to talk about next, I think.
Exactly. So we're talking with Andreas Bryant and Mark Hoffman of the Resilience Think Tank. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Today we are talking with Mark Hoffman and Andreas Bryant from the Resilience Think Tank. Just before we went away, Mark, you teased us with the objectives of the think tank. Can you enlighten us? What are some of the objectives and the goals?
Yeah,
of the think tank?
We have 6 main objectives, and I'm going to start with this one. I don't think any are necessarily more important than the others, but this one is really important to me, and it's to be an ally for our colleagues, to allow them to elevate themselves within their organization. And I'm going to tell you that I think we're the perfect team to provide this level of support to our colleagues, and I'll explain why. In Andreas's introduction of himself at the top of the show, he talked about being highly, I don't know if he used these words, but highly unqualified for the position that he applied for. And I was unqualified for the first position I got. And I talked to James on my podcast, and he said the same thing. James,
you can add me to that too. I was.
Yeah, we all are. And so we all sort of feel like we're on a sort of a major learning curve. We're trying to fake it until we make it, and we're trying to do the best that we can until we get going. Andreas also mentioned these soft skills that are so important in order to be able to build the relationships that you need to build in order to be effective in business continuity, to help build the program, to help build your standing in the company, and to do all of these things. So the first thing that we have as an objective is to be an ally for our colleagues, help them elevate themselves within their organization. That means giving them the tools that they need, giving them the skills that they need, helping them to understand some good techniques to demonstrate value or to be more effective in meetings or to be more effective when you're doing plan development or program development, whatever it turns out to be. And right alongside of that is the ability to basically for anybody who wants a seat at the table in the business continuity world to get it, right? So that kind of leads into another objective of ours, and that is to promote diversity within the profession. And if you look across the resilience think tank, we're a diverse group, and I love that about us. And there's not enough diversity in our industry across race, across gender, across a number of different categories. And so one of the objectives of the think tank is to certainly promote that. And again, anyone who wants a seat at the table, to give them the tools and the skills and the things that they need in order to get there. Another of our objectives, so many times, and how many contracts do I have going right now? I have a number of different clients, and in each case, I am a team of one. And so, well, that's the other thing. One of the other things we want to do is to be champions to help those people who are the team of one, to again, help give them the resources that they need. Because a lot of times, you know, when you're a team of one, you go out and it's you against the world. And you go out and you're struggling with things, and maybe a technique that you used at a previous employer doesn't work here. The culture is different. And sometimes you just need somebody to bounce things off of and say, look, why isn't this working? How come this isn't as effective here? And we want to be there for people. So we want to help those teams of one or two, that kind of thing. It's also really important for us as the think tank to remain independent. We are vendor and product neutral. So while I might be working with a client to develop software, when I have my resilience think tank hat on, I'm never about promoting that product or any other product, whether it's business continuity software or crisis communications teams or emergency notification tools. While we might all work with different tools and things like that, we don't ever promote that. So anytime we're doing research, anytime we are offering advice or giving guidance, it is always going to be independently represented. It'll never be, well, we like, you know, XYZ software, and oh, by the way, they happen to be a sponsor over here. That's not the kind of approach you're going to get from the resilience think tank ever.
Yeah, I always take those kind of research papers and survey findings, etc., with a grain of salt, because you know where the findings are coming from. You know, they're coming from the vendor, not, you know, everybody else.
I read an article not too long ago, and I won't mention the publication, but it was like the top 20 business continuity software tools. And I found it to be interesting in one regard because it did list some of the features of the software tools. But the people who were promoted at the top were also the main sponsors of the article. So yeah, to your point, you have to take that with a grain of salt. And I think that kind of tees up the next objective. Objective number 5 for us is to focus on what's relevant within the risk and resilient industry right now. And so, you know, we want to focus on what people are talking about or what people are struggling with. And, you know, Andreas, you can talk a little bit about operational resilience, but that's a perfect example of something that's very topical right now. And so it's something that's front of mind for us to do. And then the last thing is for us to mentor the next generation of professionals. You reach a certain part of your career, and I'm not saying that I'm older than everybody else on the team, but I think I might be. And you start thinking about your legacy, you start thinking about mentoring younger people. And I tip my hat to the rest of the think tank, because we all have this desire to make those around us better. And you use a sports kind of analogy where you say, oh, that player, when he came to the team, he made the rest of the team better. And so that's what each of us wants to do, even though we're not necessarily on a particular team as far as being an employee there. We want to be a resource to help mentor that next generation, those people who are coming into the profession who might feel like, oh my gosh, there's no way I'm qualified for this. We want to be a resource that helps them get better, helps them mature, and helps them develop into being truly a very good resilience professional. So being an ally, having that focus on diversity, being a champion for the smaller teams, an independent, neutral view, focusing on what's relevant right now, and mentoring the next generation. That's what the Resilience Think Tank is all about. And I'm just thrilled to be part of it.
Andreas, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Oh, well, Mark, that was
your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, that was a great introduction as to what our purpose and objectives are. I can talk a little bit about all of those points combined, and how perhaps we came to developing those objectives. I know Mark's already touched on it, but for me personally, when I operate in financial services in the UK, so when operational resilience was spoken about, a few years ago, led by the Bank of England, and subsequently the FCA and PRA, I sought to understand what it actually was and what it meant for us as practitioners. And in fact, it sounded very, very similar to what some disciplines refer to as organizational resilience. Right? Operational resilience, organizational resilience. I thought, oh, right, well, it's the same thing, right? And I don't know. I was trying to find out what the difference was. Admittedly, I didn't push for an answer on this, and I never found a definitive answer. Scouring online, all I saw were big four consultancy agencies. Again, there's nothing wrong with that, but they were producing papers on it. But there was a lot of technical language in that. How I could translate that into a one-pager to go back to my executives within my organization and say, hey guys, we need to do this. I needed to understand it properly myself. So what I also found was, as a business continuity practitioner myself, I was also being called by recruitment agencies, presenting opportunities as operational resilience managers, operational resilience leads, etc. And a lot of the job specifications that I received would ask for people who were experienced in operational resilience. So I was a little bit confused as to what this meant. And I noticed that a fair portion of those roles, what they included, a prerequisite of business continuity management. So it would say, they're looking for an operational resilience manager, but they are also responsible for business continuity management. So I started thinking, oh, right, so it's my responsibility, is it then? Or is my job now going to be taken over by somebody who has a new flashy title, operational resilience manager? Anyway, these are all the thoughts that were going through my head. So we wrote an article, the Resilience Think Tank wrote an article talking a little bit about this, a 2-page article. That is because from the networking conversations that we had, it appeared to be a question that not only I was asking. So we thought that the Resilience Think Tank could perhaps act as a platform for discussion about wider topics that we actually want to hear about. topics which are addressed by experienced professionals, but as Mark touched on earlier, that are not sponsored nor mandated to offer opinions that push towards an agenda of offering a product or a service. These are genuine insights into what they think it means without trying to sell you something. And I'm not trying to take anything away from those who do sell things, because they are useful, but not everybody wants that. You know, a person working for a firm that employs 500 employees, although they may not be mandated to comply with operational resilience at this present time, you know, they may still want to adopt it as a best practice. So they don't need a big consulting firm to come in and, you know, offer themselves at £500,000, you know, contract to come in and develop the program for them. Maybe they do. Maybe that's part of the appetite. But maybe they've got enough resource and enough knowledge and influence within that organization to build that without the need of somebody coming in and doing it for them. So this is sort of what we wanted to address and talk about as well.
I think that's great, because I recently I've read some articles and I've seen some promotions for different magazines, webinars, et cetera, where operational resilience and organizational resilience seem to be interchangeable in verbiage. And between the three of us, well, between me and anyone who's listening, that frustrates me, because I don't see them as interchangeable. I see the operational side as like the mechanical side. It's in its name, the operations. You know, organizational resilience I see as the culture. And I saw one ad saying that you know, if you bought their application, then you can get organizational resilience. No, you can't. You know, they're different. One will help get to the other, but you can't just buy a product off the shelf and have an organization or a person or a process automatically be resilient. It just doesn't work that way, which is why, and I'll just plug my own thoughts about the resilience think tank. When I found out you guys were going to do this, I got really excited, because I thought, finally, you know, maybe we're going to get some clarity here, you know, from the members of the think tank, but also, you know, the way you're going about it without getting everyone else involved. And I think so I'm really happy you guys are here now and established.
Yeah, thank you. Go ahead, Andreas. You go.
Yeah, sorry, just quickly. So yeah, Alex, I mean, that is a good point. And I think one thing I want to allow the watchers or listeners to understand is that certainly on the subject or topic of operational resilience, is that we're not trying to rewrite it, right? You know, we developed, well, we came together formally in September, you know, Resilience Think Tank. We had our press release then. You know, everyone's already given their 10 cents worth already on operational resilience. The last thing that people need is for us to then redefine exactly what it is. But what we can do is use the definitions that we currently have out there and try and break down how you might apply that with an organization and what it actually means for you. And this is what we really want to do, because obviously we're quite late on in the process. Operational resilience has been spoken about for a long period of time now. But when there are new topics that come about, we do, you know, we implore people to come and, you know, maybe approach us, right, and say, oh, this is something that we want to speak about. You know, can you guys look at this for us? You know, maybe provide a little bit of insight, and it can also help elevate them also, because they can be involved in that process.
You mentioned something that I find really interesting, and you can both comment on this. You said, you know, you want to help people, or organizations are going to want to do and need to do things that works for them.
Right.
In a way, is that, and I'm not going to mention any industries, any guiding groups or anything like that, but is that redefining what business continuity management is, and not just thou shalt do A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Otherwise, if you don't do these things, you are not doing business continuity management. You have to do the fit for purpose and what works for you.
Yeah, I mean, if you go back and look at one of the foundations of ISO 22301, for example, it's that business continuity, the management system needs to be done in accordance with the context of the organization. And that's what we're trying to say here is we're not trying to redefine good practices, although we are participating in that. We're not trying to redefine that. What we're trying to say is understand the context of your organization, and we can help you do what is best for you in that organization. I wanted to go back to one other thing that was mentioned a minute or so ago, and I know we're a little bit out of time here, so I'll make it quick. I was at a conference one time where the speaker said, look, if you have a question, don't be afraid to ask it, because if you're thinking it, chances are somebody else in the room is also thinking it. And that's where we're coming from as the think tank. If you're a professional out there, you have a question about something just doesn't make sense to you. Why do we ask this in a BIA? I just don't understand it. Ask us. That's why we're here, because if you're thinking it, chances are somebody else is thinking it too.
I agree 100%. The only bad question is the one never asked.
Right.
And that'll trip you up every time. So we've come to the end of our second segment. We are talking with the Resilience Think Tank, two of the founders, Andreas Bryant and Mark Hoffman. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We are talking with Mark Hoffman and Andreas Bryant from the Resilience Think Tank. Guys, moving on a little bit, you touched on a few of the topics like showing value and things. What other topics is the Resilience Think Tank working on right now?
Yeah, sure. So I'll take this if you don't mind, Mark. So on the articulating value side of things, this is a paper that we've already written, an article we've already written. You can find that's published on our LinkedIn page, which we'll provide details of later on. Likewise, with operational resilience, we also have a two-part series. I think I touched on this earlier. Discussing operational resilience and a little bit of how we articulate value as a business continuity practitioner. That sort of also goes into what we consider to be the new normal for resilience as well. I think this is quite an interesting topic because we need to evolve as practitioners within the industry. A business continuity practitioner, or let's say, for example, an operational risk manager now. So as threats, as businesses evolve, so do we as practitioners as well. Another article that we're writing at the moment is on diversity within the industry. So Mark actually touched on this earlier on, I think, in the first part. And I know that there is this misconception now because of important topics that are being discussed. When you mention the word diversity, a lot of people that I speak to, they think, all right, it's just about race and gender. Those are kind of the two main demographics that are spoken about. But there are a number of other demographics that are also perhaps underrepresented. Now, we're not saying that you need absolute equal amount of people from all different types of demographics represented in every industry, but the doors should be open and opportunities should be there for everybody. Now, I say that as somebody who has not a very good academic background, right? So, I didn't go to university, so I don't have a degree, and there were a number of struggles for certain positions as I was trying to grow up in my career, and I would look at a job description and see that I pretty much met all of the criteria, apart from the one right at the bottom, where it would even ask for GCSEs. And, at a mature age, you kind of think that's irrelevant. But otherwise, it would ask you to be educated to a degree level or above. And that ruled me out of the selection process. Now, there are still people that do that, still firms that do that. But within the resilience industry, as we mentioned earlier, it's really important to have the soft skills. The disciplines can be learned. You need to be able to be adaptable. And also, learn the different cultures of the organization. This is the same as when I go on holiday, is that I like to experience the different cultures within the places that I go to visit. Some people don't do that, and that's absolutely fine. That's their prerogative. You know, there's a saying here, you know, in the UK, that if they go abroad, they want to find somewhere where they do a full English for breakfast. You know, because that's what they're used to. But whereas I want to go and try the local cuisine and things like that. So this is where I think it's important to be adaptable. Also, what I find when it comes to diversity is that there are a number of military personnel. I'll just take that as an example, that are in our industry. And when you think military personnel, you might think, okay, so they must be in the security aspect of things, because you associate it with, you know, physical protection. But that's not necessarily the case, because through the training that somebody in the military might acquire, they might show themselves to be, you know, the calmest person in the room. And that is absolutely key, you know, where you have this command and control when you're managing a crisis. So I've actually found a lot of former military personnel. It doesn't mean they need to be, you know, it doesn't mean they need to be frontline. They could have had an administration role, but part of that training allows them to, you know, manage a crisis effectively. And there are lots of people from different backgrounds that are like that as well. I don't want to take up too much time on this because we are writing an article about it, but also when it comes to people like this with disabilities, our threats are no longer siloed to losing the office, right? Not everybody works 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. Events can happen at any time, any day of the year. So what COVID's shown us is that people that perhaps had responsibilities that did not allow them to go to the office 9 to 5, they were able to work flexible times because they had the ability to work remotely. And now that, as that becomes the new norm for a lot of people, this opens the resilience industry to those people. And I think a lot of firms recruiting for resilience personnel should look beyond the 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, and include people from all different demographics, because it's available to everybody now.
A couple of things I just wanted to point out. You mentioned soft skills. That was actually the topic of my talk at DRJ last week, because I've had the same thinking. You know, if you want organizational resilience that incorporates culture, well, culture is not going to happen if you don't have soft skills, you know, and in other areas as well. And being adaptable, you mentioned adaptable in the different industries that people come back from. I didn't go to university either. I've taken university courses, and diplomas, different certificates and things like that, but not a full university course. But my background was in the hospitality industry, restaurants, where you're judged on how you interact with sometimes hundreds of different people a day, and having to adapt to every single group, every table you have differently. And I was a manager as well, so every single staff member, people that are in the front of the house, the back of the house. So it's interesting that you brought up those points. I actually feel better about myself now coming from the hospitality industry.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mark, go ahead.
No, so I was going to say, I think that's the thing, like with me and, you know, a lot of other members of the Resilience Think Tank, is that we're a transparent bunch. We like to speak openly, and hopefully it will give, you know, those people who are a little less confident presenting themselves, the confidence to kind of elevate themselves and just speak openly about it. You know, we're not robots. We don't know everything, but, you know, it's the value of sharing information and intelligence. We will know more, and we will be educated a lot more, you know, to make the right decisions in life.
Mm-hmm. Mark, I think you were ready to say something there too.
I just had a couple of things, like something that you said there, Alex, about the hospitality industry. I tried to convey one time to a client the importance of our program having a bit of a customer service feel to it. And I don't mean to sort of lay down so that our internal customers can just walk all over us, but to be able to service them in a way that gives them what they need in the format that they needed, in the tools that they needed. And customer service, I think, is a really important aspect of any business continuity program. The other thing, as we think about diversity, and Andreas mentioned a focus on what the new normal might look like and things like that, I want to kind of let you inside the tent for just a second and give you a little bit of insight as to how we do this. So there are 6 of us, and we always pick a partner. And so when it came to the diversity project that Andreas was doing, he had to pick one of the other 5 of us to say, okay, I want to work with you on this, and let's go off together and do it. And he picked Lisa Jones. And what you get with that is, if my math is right, and it's probably not, but something like a combination of 25 different teams that you could have, 2-person teams. It could be Andreas and me, or it could be Andreas and Ashley, or Milena and Lisa, or James and Lisa, or, you can have a whole different combination. And what I like about that is these teams of 2 go off and do the research, and they do the work, and then they'll even draft the reports or the articles. And then it comes back to the rest of us to look at. And then you get the perspective of the other 4 who look at this and say, oh, that's interesting. What do you mean by that? Or how could this be presented differently? And it is a very unique approach, and I really like it. And it builds relationships within the think tank, and it also gives unique perspectives in the reports that we put out. So I think that that's a really interesting way of going about doing it.
Now, you mentioned reports that you put out. What other kind of things can we expect, like the deliverables that come from the think tank?
Yeah, so
or that you're hoping to do at some point.
Yeah, the idea here is, and we're still in our infancy, and we're going to get better at this, and this is going to evolve as we mature. But the idea is that every research project that we do, so Andreas is working on a diversity project right now, that should come with a report, whether it's a white paper or some kind of an online document, whatever that turns into, that for sure is going to be one of the outputs. And then from there, we leverage that content, and it might mean that we show up on a podcast somewhere, or we might do a webinar, whether it's for the BCI or some other organization, which is what we did, by the way, for articulating value. We wrote articles, we showed up on BCI's Education Month, and things along those lines. We also want to start to promote a little bit more in the way of weekly content on topical matters through our LinkedIn page or through our Twitter account and things like that. And then the other thing is, it seems like our founders are speaking everywhere. I mean, we're just everywhere. If there is a conference right now, one of us or multiple of us are there. So Andreas and I are here with you today. I've had 2 members of the think tank on my podcast, The Resilient Journey. I'm going to probably leave somebody out here, but I think Lisa, Ashley, and James all spoke last week at DRJ. A number of us are speaking at BCI World in November. And then Alex, you mentioned the Continuity and Resilience Today. James, Milena, and I are keynoting at that one. And so we're everywhere. Like, it just seems like every time you turn around, one of us is going to be speaking somewhere. Now, before we forget, I'm also going to be interviewing Lisa and I know there are 2, but I will be actually interviewing them in a couple of weeks. And I'm also going to have James in a couple of hours doing his next broadcast of This Week in Business Continuity. What happened? You froze in the middle of just as you were going to say that you were interviewing Lisa.
Oh, okay. Well, then I guess I'll have to say that again then.
Do you have the ability to?
Yeah, I'll just cut it out. That's all.
So let's go back to. I'll pick it up. You'll see where I'm going. Okay.
Okay. I'll just start my piece over again, and I'll cut this out.
Okay. So the other thing is that members of the think tank we're speaking everywhere. So I know, for example, Andreas and I are here with you today. Lisa, Ashley, James, they spoke at DRJ just recently. A number of us are speaking at BCI World. And then, Alex, you mentioned earlier about continuity and resilience today. James, Melina, and I are actually keynoting there. And so it seems like, anytime you turn around, one of us is somewhere. Now, that doesn't mean we're always talking about the resilience think tank, but it does kind of talk about the influence that we hope to have on the industry.
And I actually have Melina and Lisa on the show in a couple of weeks. And a couple of hours after we stop this very recording, I record another episode of This Week with Business Continuity with James Green. So I've got you here. So I think I've got almost everybody been on the show at some point now. Who are the other members? You've kind of touched on them, but who are the other members of the think tank? Because you said there's 6 of you.
Yeah, so we have James Green, who everyone knows. Ashley Guzman, who is excellent. She does a lot of work in crisis management as well as business continuity, and she has some very good resources. We have Lisa Jones, who was just announced as the new president of the BCI Americas chapter, or the US chapter. We have also from the UK, Melina Maneva, and Melina and I worked together on return to office work last year, and we did a lot of things together. And then you have Andreas and myself. So the 6 of us, quite a team. There's no ego in the group. We're all very collaborative, and it's a really good team.
You mentioned LinkedIn page. How do people get in touch with the think tank, or how are they able to follow what you're doing? Is there a LinkedIn group, a name they can follow, or?
Yeah, sure. It's the Resilience Think Tank, so it'll be published also, but it's the www.linkedin.com/company/Resilience Think Tank. That's all one word, Resilience Think Tank. You can also hashtag it, so it's hashtag Resilience Think Tank, all one word. We've also got a Twitter page. It's @ResilienceTT. So that's no spaces in that. So @ResilienceTT is the Twitter page. We've also got links to our published articles via our LinkedIn page as well.
Great. I'll try and get all of that information and put that in the video description for this as well. So if people want to reach out, they know how to find you. So we are getting close to the end of the show. Any final thoughts, Andreas, that you'd like to convey?
When we formed the Resilience Think Tank, and Mark, I hope you don't mind me being transparent about this. I'm not going to wait for your answer, so I'm just going to go ahead with it. I said to Mark that I was happy, I wanted to be part of this, but I was happy to blend into the background and provide research and insights into topics of interest. And I have no desire to publicly speak or represent on a webinar, etc. Now, Mark said to me, fat chance. It's what he said. He said, we're going to elevate and we're going to support you. We're all on this journey together. You have a lot to say on interesting topics, hence the reason why you're in this group. So let other people hear it. Give other people confidence to do the same. So here I am, my first ever podcast. So I've never been on a webinar or anything like this before. This is my first time.
Hey, first one.
Exactly. Now I will admit, I said I am a transparent person and open about things. I have experienced what some would refer to as imposter syndrome. When I thought what I do is good, I struggle to articulate how I add value. And I know I spoke about this a little bit earlier, but not just to organizations, also to myself. I started questioning, really, am I good at what I do? Networking with other practitioners, I found to be so helpful. So I ask everybody, be open, be transparent, and most of all, be ethical about it. You don't need to do things that don't sit right with you just to advance your career. The journey may be a little slower, depending on what industry you're in. The journey may be a little bit slower, but you will get there. You can change the mindset and culture of an industry when you're in it. Get in there and influence. One other thing I would say, it may be worth investing in a confidence coach or a healer of some sort. Now, this may divide opinion for some people, but like with ourselves as resilience practitioners, there are other specialist practitioners out there that can help us understand what it is that we want. Add personal resilience as a milestone to your journey in order to address your personal resilience and understanding as to what might block you from being able to demonstrate your value. And most of all, have fun whilst you're doing it.
Great.
I love that. And
Yeah.
Andreas, I applaud you for being transparent and being open and willing to share that. And I'm almost the other side of the coin. I've gotten enough experience to feel very confident that what I do adds value and that I'm good at what I do. And boy, there was a hurdle for me to be able to say that, because I never used to be able to do that. Where I struggle is in the networking side of it. Like COVID for me, and I don't mean this in any disrespectful way to people who struggled with it, but COVID for me was perfect because I didn't have to go anywhere. I could work right here. I have a lovely office. I love being here, and I can talk to whoever I need to talk to through this. And I didn't have to go mingle, and I didn't have to go interact, because I'm introverted enough that I can't do that stuff. Like, I hate that stuff. I can stand up and speak in a room full of hundreds of people. I've gotten up in front of hundreds of people and sang a solo in various church settings or whatever. I can do that stuff. Go mingle with them afterwards? Oh no, So we all have different personalities and different strengths and different weaknesses. And I think that's the point of the think tank. We want to be able to help people, be that ally for people. And then one last thing, and then I'll finally kind of shut up about it, is the people around the table at the Resilience Think Tank. I've always been impressed with them from a professional standpoint, but the more I get to know them, the more impressed I am from a personal standpoint. These are genuinely good people, like nice people, good people, moral people. And I really, really enjoy that about our team, probably more so than the experience and all that other stuff. Because like Andreas said a minute ago, being ethical about things is the heart of really being successful at it.
Mark, you are exactly like me. Everything you said about, talking up in front of a crowd at a conference, no problem. But afterwards, I'm the kind of guy who just stands in the corner or off to the sides and just watches from there.
So next time we're both at the same conference, we'll look for each other, we'll hang out together, and it'll be perfect. It'll be great.
And that's it. Everyone else stay away.
That's right.
And Andreas, I really applaud you and your honesty there. And because it didn't show that this was your very first podcast.
Agree.
Thank you.
It didn't come through that way. So, kudos to you for that. So I'm really glad to have both of you here. The think tank. Oh, I almost forgot something. Mark, you guys do a think tank as well. A podcast. We didn't mention that.
So yeah, so the podcast is mine. It's not affiliated with the think tank.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So as much as I like to promote my own work and things like that, let's focus just on this episode on the think tank. But from doing a podcast how much fun it is. I mean, I get to talk to a lot of really smart people and ask some fun questions and see where the conversations go. And so I'm doing that as well.
Oh, great. Well, gentlemen, thank you for sharing your time and your expertise with us today. I really appreciate being here, and congratulations on the think tank. I'm really looking forward to seeing what comes out of it and where you go, and everything about it I'm really excited about. So you definitely have a full supporter here for you guys. So thank you very much, Andreas. Thank you very much, Mark.
Yeah, we appreciate that. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Alex.
And to everybody watching and listening, stay prepared, everybody. If you liked that video, thumbs up. If you didn't like that video, thumbs down. But leave a message and let me know what your thoughts are. If you'd like to be a guest on the show to talk about something related to business continuity, disaster management, COVID, personal well-being, anything that's relatable to those subjects. You can reach me through my LinkedIn profile, which is in the video description. And of course, don't forget to subscribe. In the meantime, stay prepared, everybody.